Welcome to episode 32 of Talking Prisoner. Today we've got another amazing guest with us. Just give me a minute while I get through this massive intro. He's got an extensive list of credits to his name. He's one of Australia's most versatile and respected actors. He's also been in The Magistrate, GP, Frankie's House, The Heartbreak Kid, Police Rescue, Blue Murder, Stingers, The Crocodile Hunter, Collision Course, The Matrix Reloaded, The Alice, All Saints, Neighbours, Sea Patrol, Underbelly, Rush, Mr. and Mrs. Murder, Fat Tony and Co., Upper Middle Bogan, The Working Girl, one of the rare actors to be also in Wentworth and Prisoner at the same time. Well, not at the same time, but the same show, Australian Gangster and Fires. He's also a writer, producer, and director, as well as starring in Welfare, which he also wrote and produced. We're, of course, talking about Steve Bastoni. Welcome to Talking Prisoner. Good morning, Ken.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Gosh, that intro made me tired.
I think you've been on every show in Australia.
I didn't realise I worked so hard. I wish my bank balance reflected all that work.
Now, before we start about Prisoner and the other shows you've been in, can we just learn a little bit about you growing up as a child?
Yeah, sure. I spent my first 8 years growing up in Rome. I was born in Rome in Italy and lived in a condominium sort of complex about half an hour outside of Rome.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, grew up there till I was 8, went to an American school called the Overseas School of Rome. And so English was, American was my English. And so when I arrived in Australia in 1972 as a kid, my parents separated. I came out here with my mum and my 2 sisters. And so I came out here, I had an American accent. So I got, all the kids at North Baldwin Primary School were like, what's with this new kid? He comes from Italy, but he speaks American. And they just would always ask me to say things like, hey, Steve, can you say basket? Say basket. And I'd say basket. And they'd fall about laughing. They thought that was hilarious. So, there was a little bit of, I could communicate. Obviously, I had English, but I just spoke with an American accent. So I was a bit of a novelty at primary school. And then I grew up in, we arrived and North Baldwin was my first school. Went there for a little bit and only for a few weeks. And then we all moved to North Carlton. And I spent the rest of my sort of young adolescent life living in and around Carlton and Brunswick. So played for Carlton Little League Football Club, lived in Princes Hill, which is a little enclave of Carlton. Yep. And my first job was at an Italian restaurant in Drummond Street, Carlton, which is now a famous Italian restaurant called Donini's, and I still go there today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's the best pasta in Australia. So Donini's is very, very good. Wow. And I grew up in Carlton, and at about 17, I moved out of home, got an apartment with my then girlfriend, who was a model. Penny Evans, her name was, and she moved up to Sydney to pursue her modelling career, and I moved up with her. And so we moved up to Sydney in about 1986, and then I did the Rocky Horror Show in 87, and that's when I met Russell Crowe and Simon Westaway and those guys. And we're still friends to this day. So, yeah, that's sort of a quick rundown of my my teenage years and childhood. My childhood was also, obviously in Italy, from 0 to 8 years. And Italy, I loved Italy, but it wasn't a great place for teenagers and for kids at that time. There was still a lot of political unrest. There was kidnappings and terrorism and stuff like that happening. So yeah, that was quite common in Europe in the early, in the late 60s, early 70s. So
wow. Yeah,
so my mum thought it was best to bring us out here, and we came out here because my mum's Australian, so she was coming home for her.
Oh, okay.
She met my dad in Italy and married and settled down there, and then when they separated, she moved back with to get the support of her family and moved back home to Australia.
Do you go back to Italy often, or?
I used to. Since I've had my own kids, it's become a bit more difficult, obviously. You know, five of us. There's five of us. I've got three children. And yeah, we'll get over there in the next couple of years. You know, it's been on my radar to go back, but I haven't been back for over 10 years. So I haven't been back to Italy for about 15 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd love to go back soon, though. I will go back soon.
Looks amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you know you wanted to be an actor, and what did your mother think when you told her?
Well, my mother actually was the one who introduced me to acting. My mum was involved in amateur theatre. She was a member of the Melbourne University Italian Theatre Group. Even though she was Australian, she spoke fluent Italian, having lived there for 17 years. And so when she joined the Melbourne University Italian Theatre Group, there was a play that they did called Minestrone. And they were looking for a young kid to do a monologue in Venetian dialect. And he needed to be 10 years old, you know, around 10, 11 years old. And I was about 10 at the time. This was when we were living in Carlton. So I did it. And I remember being on stage at the Adelaide Arts Festival and just thinking, wow, this is incredible. There's about 1,500 people in the audience. And I came on and did this monologue about a young boy who's at a Catholic school who hates all the priests and gets into trouble, and they give him a smack, so he gives it back to them with a hockey stick. and so he was quite a sprightly and a feisty young kid. So and I was too. So it went well. And I mean, obviously at 10, 11 years old, if you stand on stage and do anything, the audience are going to be appreciative. So, you know, it got a big round of applause. And from that moment, I thought, wow, this is incredible. I'd love to do this. But of course, I didn't pursue it because, you know, as a 13-year-old growing up in Carlton, most of my contemporaries, you know, had aspirations to become panel beaters or boilermakers or, you know, get apprenticeships as, you know, chippies or plumbers or whatever. And not many kids in that you know era were in that neighborhood sort of had aspirations to be involved in the arts, you know, because it was a pretty working class suburb. But my mum loved theatre, and I loved, since I did that when I was 8, I got a taste for it, and I loved it. So I went to an alternative school in my in year 10. I went to a school called Lionel Hall in Brunswick, and a director came to our school and asked if I'd like to audition for this short film he was making. And he was casting all over the schools all around Melbourne, and I won the role. And at the premiere screening of that, an agent came up to me and asked if I wanted representation. And of course, I didn't know what representation was. She asked if I wanted an agent. And I said, well, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll do that. And from that moment, I just started working. So I never had any formal training. I came through really doing a lot of theatre. I did do a fair bit of theatre in my late teens. I was involved with a couple of a repertory theatre company called the Faliki Players, which was founded by a woman called Tess Lysiotis, a Greek-Australian woman who wrote mainly about the migrant experience. But that was a great troupe, a really great troupe of actors. There were 6 of us. And interestingly enough, another Neighbours alumni was involved in that in the early days, and Fiona Cork was in Fiona Cork. Yeah, Fiona Cork was in that same troupe. So that's going, wow, that's really, you know, I'm going back now. So they're talking very early 80s, like 82, somewhere around there.
Wow.
So that's how I got into it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, I'm sure you don't have a lot of spare time with the amount of TV shows that you've been on, but what hobbies do you have? What do you like to do in your spare time?
You see that in the corner there? That's a surfboard. I've got about 20 surfboards. I've got a surfboard problem. Hi, my name's Steve, and I'm a surfboard addict. Yeah, I've got about 20 boards. Yeah. I just bought another one yesterday. I've got to stop. It's getting ridiculous. My wife's going to throw me out of the house.
You can't
surfing,
use them all at once, can you?
No, you can't. No, you can only use one at a time. And I only ride maybe 6 of them. So I've probably got to sell a few off. But I enjoy, the ones I buy, I collect them on. Like that's a beautiful old 70s board from a shaper up in New South Wales. And yeah, it's a beautiful old board. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'll show you a bit closer.
Yeah, I love the old stuff. Oh, wow.
It's a beautiful old board, isn't it?
What's it like riding one of them compared to the new ones?
Oh, look, they don't go as well. It's like driving, driving a 70s car compared to a modern car, Yeah. They're a bit rickety. but they're beautiful. I just appreciate them for, the design and because they're all handmade from scratch. So they don't make them anymore like that. So
amazing.
Yeah. And I like, I've got a couple of electric skateboards as well. Here's one.
They're becoming really common now. I'm seeing a lot of people riding them.
Yeah, this thing's a beast. It does 40 kilometers an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it goes pretty quick. So I'm currently down at the beach. I've got to rent an apartment down near the beach, away from my family home. So my family home's in Rosebud, about 10 kilometers down the road, well, 20 kilometers down the road. And I've got this beach house. So I'm sort of at the beach at the moment. So just chilling out. And I use this place as a bit of a studio as well.
Oh,
and
nice.
Yeah. So I love, I love swimming. I love surfing. I'm a keen basketball player. I follow Melbourne United. And I like reading. I like a bit of meditation.
Yeah.
I like walking, bushwalking and stuff. I really like connecting with nature, And surfing's the perfect sport for that.
How often do you meditate?
Well, I try and do it daily. I try and do 10 minutes every morning. It's not much, but I find that it just sets me up for the day nicely. Reminds me I forgot to meditate today. But normally it's every day.
Yeah. I've recently started that as well. It makes a real big difference, I feel. Massive
difference. And just, I'm a bit of a coffee addict as well. So it makes me aware of how fast my brain goes sometimes, when you just sit for a minute, it's like, whoa, it's like a pinball machine in there,
I know that feeling.
You also founded the Peninsula Film Festival. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, correct. It's now in its 11th year. I actually founded it because when I moved down to the Peninsula about 12 years ago, I started an acting school just because there wasn't much work happening at the time. And I had a lot of spare time and I thought, well, there's nothing down here for the kids. So I started this acting school and it became quite popular. I don't teach anymore, but one of the ways I remembered was I got my break as a film actor through short film. And I thought, well, this is a great opportunity for my acting students to get some on-set experience. Because if you're studying to become an actor or you're starting out, it's very difficult to get experience on set. And it's one of those catch-22s. You have to have experience to get the job, and then you don't get the job if you've had no experience. But if you don't get, it's sort of a catch-22 situation. So a good way, a practical way to gain experience and practice your craft as a film actor is to do short films, because they're pretty much accessible to anybody. These days you can shoot them on phones, So yeah, I started the film festival as an outlet for my students to gain some experience, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to do something of cultural value down here on the Peninsula, which there was very little of at the time. So the arts have always interested me, and I just thought it'd be a fun hobby, and I didn't envisage it taking off the way it did. Like the first night we opened, we had a line around the block, and we had councillors and people turn up, and the mayor came and introduced himself to me and said, "Oh, this is wonderful for the Peninsula. We've got to do this every year." And I said, "Well, if you write me a check, I'll make sure it happens every year." And he said, "This is great. Who did you talk to about the permit?" And I said, "Permit? Well, maybe we should talk about a permit for next year." So yeah, it just took off, and now it's in its 11th year. Last year was the first year that we did it. We normally do it by the beach in an area called the Village Green, which is a big grassy area.
Yeah.
And last year, because of COVID, we did it at the drive-in. So again, this year, again, because of COVID, we're going to do it at the drive-in. So it's selling very quickly. If you're interested and you want to come along and see some short films on the Mornington Peninsula, you can do it and go to our website and you can book tickets. It's $40 a car, and you can fit 5 people in a car, so it's less than $10 a head. Nice. And it's a great night of entertainment. It's on March the 12th this year. 12th. So March 12th, yeah, you can book if you go to our Facebook page or our website, peninsulafilmfestival.com.au. You can book tickets through there. Yeah.
Let's throw a link up on the interview and the Facebook page as well. I'm sure people.
Great, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we've got some good people, guests, judges this year. We've got Kate Atkinson, who's from Wentworth.
Oh, wow.
And Kate's about to do this big Channel 9 mini-series about that woman the con artist.
Saw that.
So we've got her, we've got Michaela Bannis, we've got Lockie Hume, and that's all we have at the moment, but there's going to be more great names. In the past, we've had some really great people, Shane Jacobson, Sullivan Stapleton. We had Kate Jenkinson a couple of years ago. So actually last year we had Kate. Yeah, we always get someone from Wentworth. And I think Madeline West is coming as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
You've made some guest appearances in some well-known shows such as All Saints, Rush, Sea Patrol, Prisoner, Neighbours, Blue Murder, Police Rescue. Do you mind if we talk about some of these roles?
No, go for it.
Okay, you played Yanis Angelopoulos in Police Rescue between 1991 and 1996. My wife and I were big fans, and in the feature film as well. Can you tell us about being in the show and how you got the role?
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the time, I think I just finished doing Rocky Horror Show. Around there. And it was the early 90s. They approached me, I think, 89. And they just seen me in The Magistrate. I did this TV miniseries called The Magistrate with Franco Nero, who's a big Italian actor. It was an ABC miniseries, and I played his son. And the producers had made a pilot of Police Rescue, 1 episode, 1 hour pilot, and it was brilliant. It was very, very well done. But they felt it lacked diversity, and they needed an ethnic actor, basically. And it was a bit of tokenism, to be honest, I think. But I'm grateful that it was, and I got the role. So they offered me the role based on my performance in The Magistrate, and they sent me the pilot, and I was at my girlfriend's house in Canberra. At the time, we were visiting her parents, and I put the video. It was a video then, the VHS video. I put it in the player and watched the first episode of Police Rescue, and I said, "Wow, this is incredible! This is fantastic!" And the role that they'd written for me was a great role, so I jumped at the chance. And I'll never forget my first day of rehearsal on Police Rescue. I rocked up I was living in Newtown in Sydney, and I had driven all the way to French's Forest, which was where the studio where we filmed it, which is on the North Shore. It's about an hour and a bit drive from Newtown. You have to cross the bridge. It's quite a hike. And I'd never been over to the North Shore. I was always an inner suburbs guy, you know. And so I drove there and I got lost. And so my first day of rehearsal of Police Rescue, I was like an hour late.
Oh, wow.
So when I got there, they're all at the studio, about 40 minutes. They're all at the studio sitting around this big table to have a read through of the first, you know, the second episode of Police Rescue, the launch of the series. And in walks Bastoni like 45 minutes late, and it wasn't a good look. I remember Gary Sweet, the look he gave me, he just looked at me like, oh, mate, not a good start, you know. So, but we had a great time shooting Rescue. It was, you know, back in the day when you could do your own stunts, which we did all our own stunts. You know, I learned how to abseil. We jumped off. Yeah, we jumped off. I jumped off nearly every building in Sydney, you know, like the big ones, in the big skyscrapers in the city. We abseiled off most of those. Wow. Did the MCG Tower, the SCG Tower, Sydney Cricket Ground Tower. I jumped off Centre Point Tower. So, and we were trained by, there was a guy who came out from New South Wales Police Rescue who trained us up with a lot of the stuff with the, you know, you how to use the jaws of life, how to use all that stuff, that rescue equipment. And we also worked with the New South Wales Fire Brigade because they showed us how to, well, we used their facility to do the abseiling. So, you know, they trained us up with all the abseiling and everything. And you know, back in those days, as I said, we could do it. We did some incredible stuff at the Blue Mountains and around there where we were jumping off cliffs, and North Head. You know, Gary went face first down off North Head. And, you know, we did some amazing action stuff that these days, there's no way in the world you could do. The insurance company would never let you, you know. So that was a lot of fun, Police Rescue. And I'm still friends, you know, Tammy McIntosh is still a dear friend. I had her as a judge of Police Rescue at the film festival a couple of years ago. And yeah, she's, you know, had a great career, and she's a lovely friend of mine. And, you know, Gary and I still talk and still friends. And, you know, it's Leah Purcell. She came in, I think, the last series. She's kicked on big time now. Yeah. But, you know, it was an incredible series. Everybody wanted to be on Police Rescue. Like, you know, people, Kate Blanchett, Miranda Otto, Richard Roxburgh, all those actors, you know, got their break on Police Rescue. So, and it was one of the rare beasts in that it was shot on Super 16 film. So we were using cinema cameras, and it was shot like a movie every, you know, we'd shoot one episode every 8 days, I think, or every 10 days. So it was more like working on a big film than a TV series. So, but I loved Police Rescue. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a great show. Was it tough trying to do all the stunts and remember lines at the same time? Or was it just all flowed together?
Yeah, after a while, we just, when we first started, like this first series, you know, you'd be having to run down a cliff and, you know, undoing a rope or something, or, you know, using some piece of equipment and learn and get the lines out. That was kind of tricky, you know. But after a while, it became second nature, and we really were like a well-oiled machine, you know. In fact, I really feel sorry now, looking back. I feel sorry for the guesties who came on the show, because we were such a tight group, and we would know each other. So, like, you know, we'd be mucking around on screen, you know, off screen. Between takes, we'd be mucking around, having a laugh and doing something. And then the minute they'd say action, we'd be like, bang, okay, we're in. And it was, we could turn it on like that, you know. And there was a lot of trust, and we knew the way each other worked. So for the guesties, I'm sure they were like, what the hell, what's going on? You know, because I've worked on shows since as a guest, and you go on set, and there's a very clicky sort of well-oiled machine, and they just bang, and you're still trying to find your feet. So it can be daunting for guest artists.
Like being the new kid at school, isn't it, I guess?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's right. Trying to find your place.
Yeah. Now, you're in a movie called The Matrix Reloaded with Keanu Reeves and an amazing cast. How did that come about?
Yeah, well, I was living in Sydney. I hadn't worked for about 4 or 5 months. You know, it was a really bleak period. And I remember I got an audition for The Matrix Reloaded, and at the time I was kind of partying a lot, you know. So I was out at the Q bar, and I went straight from the Q bar to the audition, which probably wasn't the best thing to do. But in retrospect, I mean, it probably was, because I got the role. I actually auditioned for the role of Ghost, which was a character that was big in the video game, but not in the movie. And I didn't hear anything for about 2 months. And I'll never forget, I was sort of wallowing, you know, thinking I'm never going to work again. And this phone call came through, and it was an offer on Matrix to play Captain Soren, which was a different role and a better role than the one that I'd auditioned for. So, yeah, that was amazing, and got to fly over to, we filmed in Alameda in San Francisco. They flew a bunch of us Aussies over there. And Alameda is where they shot Mythbusters. It's a disused Air Force hangar base. And it's a big concrete sort of stretch of concrete and hangars underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. Is it the San Francisco? Yeah. So, so we filmed there for 8 weeks or something, 8 weeks. I think we were there for, maybe 6 weeks. And we only worked 1 day. So it was incredible. We were there just sort of waiting around, and finally we got to shoot our Zion, the big cave sequence. The dance party in Zion happened there. Then they recreated that in Sydney as well. So we could have really just shot it all in Sydney, but they flew us out there. It was ridiculous how much money they had. You know, like the catering was lobster and things every day. There was like 4 different kinds of meal to choose from. And, you know, I had my own personal driver. And it was crazy. It was just crazy. But a lot of fun. Again, really nice people to work with. Keanu was a real sweetheart, as was Lawrence Fishburne, and I got along very well. We went out a lot in Sydney. Yeah, we hung out a lot in Sydney. And so did Keanu. You know, we hung out quite a bit. He's a very humbled guy, lovely bloke, very well adjusted. And Matrix was an incredible experience working on a big Hollywood film like that. It was incredible how long everything took, you know, like just for a small 10-second sequence, you might shoot all day, you know, so just to get 10 seconds of screen time. Like, there's one scene where we're walking in a drain. I don't even know if it made it in the final movie. I don't think it did, but there was one scene that we shot. We shot a whole. We took us half a day to shoot for literally, 5 seconds of screen time, and they didn't like the way the light was hitting the water, so they relit it and had scheduled another whole day to shoot that. And I don't even think it made it into the movie. In fact, it didn't make it into the movie. So there you go. Yeah.
Wow. Just going back on when you first talked about the Matrix, and you said, you waited a few months to hear about the part. A lot of people see the glamorous part of your career, but there's a lot of waiting around. Is it tough waiting a few months to hear about a role after an audition?
Yeah, look, it used to be a lot tougher than it is now. I don't really wait on things now. I just do the audition and I'll walk away and hope for the best, because there's no point sweating on it. It doesn't help you at all. It just, it makes the disappointment more if you miss out. And these days, I understand that, you can't sort of take it personally. It depends what they're looking for and who they're casting you opposite. There's so many factors that are beyond your control. All you can do is turn up and do your best on the day and hope for the best. But there's a lot of times where, you do a great audition and you walk out and you say, wow, I really nailed that. I think I'm going to get that. And you don't hear anything. And equally, other times I walk out thinking, oh, well, I blew that. And I'll get the phone call, you got the gig. So, what do I know?
You also played Louis Bayer in Underbelly, The Golden Mile in 2010. That part was the part of a convicted standover man. What was it like to be part of that franchise, and how did you get the part, and what did you think of your character? Did you meet with Louis to get to know him? Louis, to get to know him?
Well, no, I didn't. I was aware of the Underbelly franchise because obviously the first one had come out that centered on Alphonse and the Carlton crew and all of that stuff. And I was aware of the series. It was hugely popular and did very well. So Underbelly, when they said they were going to do the second one and it was the Golden Mile set up in Sydney, I'd moved down here at that stage. So I just finished doing Neighbours. What do you do? What do you need? Okay, use that one. Use that one. So that's my daughter looking for her her iPad charger. I was down here in Melbourne. I was actually living on the Peninsula when they rang and offered me the role. I didn't have to audition for that one. They just made an offer, which is always nice when they offer you. Same with Wentworth. I didn't have to audition for that character either. It was an offer. So it's nice to get an offer, you know, after working for 30 years in the business, finally they go, oh, maybe this guy can act, you know, and you don't have to come in and do an audition for, you know, for a guestie. But I did a bit of research on the character. There was a lot printed on him. Yeah. And there was a lot of, there wasn't any material. Can you close that door, please? There wasn't any video material of him speaking, unfortunately. So I had to sort of take a guess on what he spoke like. But there was a lot of photographs and videos of him coming in and out of the court and the way he moved. He was a big guy, big, heavy, set man. And, you know, because I'd lived in the King's Cross for 2 decades, I knew those type of people. You know, I'd met them, a lot of people like him. And knew people who knew him. So I was able to get some information that probably others, you know, weren't privy to, that wasn't public knowledge. So I was able to get a lot of information. And for me, what struck me was, you know, the way his face, his mouth in particular, you know, was interesting because it was very turned down and sort of, he looked like he could smell something bad all the time, you know. He didn't look like a happy man. He looked like a man who was just sort of he looked a bit angry, to be honest. So I just sort of ran with that and had a bit of fun with the character. And you know, I spent a few weeks up in Sydney filming that around King's Cross, and it was quite interesting actually because I'd spent so much time in the Cross when we were filming on the street up there. Quite a few times. Quite a few times. Sorry. Quite a few times I'd have people come up to me in the street and say, "Oh, hi, Steve. How you going?" I say, "We're in the middle of a scene. There's a camera on us." You know, there are people coming up to me, you know, who I knew from the area, you know. So it was interesting. It was, you know, it went down very well. It rated really well, and I think they're going to do another series about John Abraham soon called The King of the Cross, based on his book. So that'll be interesting.
So growing up in Carlton, you must have seen a lot of those Carlton guys from the first Underbelly, Gangitano and all them growing up.
Yeah, I used to bump into them all the time. I used to hang out in a cafe called Bar Italia, just off Lygon Street, and Alphonse was in there all the time. So yeah, I knew a lot of those guys. I grew up with all of those guys. You know, I went to high school with Tony Mockbell. So you know, but yeah, those guys are no strangers to me.
Yeah,
you know, I never went down that road, obviously.
Only on TV.
Only on TV, that's right. Well, I think it's probably, you know, it's helped me over the years because I know those guys, you know, I know the way they think and the way they operate. So it's definitely been a help for you know, playing them.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Underbelly, you played Charlie Bazzina in Fat Tony and Co., which was on Tony Mockbell. Now, he's one of Victoria's top homicide detectives. He investigated more than 300 suspicious deaths, including 150 murders. What was it like taking on that role? Did you get to meet with Charlie to sort of pick it apart? Or?
No, I didn't meet Charlie. I got to watch a lot of video footage of him because he was actually, there's a lot of stuff online about Charlie Bazzina. You know, he had a very similar shaped face to me. I thought he might have been Italian. He's actually Maltese.
Oh,
Yeah, but he's which is pretty close to Italian. But he was, yeah, we had a very similar sort of facial structure, and I guess that's why they cast me in it probably. But there was a lot of stuff online about him speculating on unsolved murders and things like that. And he was a consultant. You know, he did a lot of. He was very vocal in the paper, and he consulted for a lot of people. I didn't meet him, but I saw a lot of video footage, and the way he spoke was quite particular. You know, he had quite a high pitched sort of voice, and spoke very quickly and very sharply. Very sharp guy. Yeah, so the only research I did really was watching a lot of video of him. Yeah, I find looking at photographs very useful.
Yeah.
Because you can get a lot of detail out of a picture's worth 1,000 words, and you can get a lot of detail about a person. But Charlie's a very, you know, he's a very smart man and a very disciplined and a very disciplined character, you know, so he was very stitched up, you know, and quite direct and very, you know, a professional. You know, there wasn't a lot of levity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of actors prefer not to meet the people they're going to be playing. They just prefer to get into their own zone and just watch some footage. And yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm all for it. You know, like in Blue Murder, I spent a lot of time with Mick Drury, and I found it very, very useful. You know, I watched him very closely, and I got into his headspace. And you know, there was times that we'd just sit in his backyard and just say nothing for a while, and they were interesting moments too. You know, I absolutely, if I got the opportunity to meet the person you're playing, I think you're crazy if you don't take it.
Yeah. Blue Murder was actually what I wanted to talk to you about next, which had an amazing cast as yourself, Richard Roxburgh, Tony Martin, Peter Phelps, Gary Sweet, Bill Hunter. I mean, it's still talked about to this day and still watched. People love that. I mean, it's a great series. How did that come about for you as well?
Yeah, that was interesting. Well, Michael Jenkins directed Blue Murder, and he's a brilliant director. He also directed the first couple of episodes of Police Rescue.
Oh, wow.
So he knew of my work. Now, they wanted me to audition for the role initially. They asked me to come in to audition for the role of Warren Lanham-Franchi, the violent drug dealer who meets his death to Roger Rogerson, who was Sally Ann Huckstep's partner. So they asked me to audition for that, and I said, no, I don't want to audition for that. And they said, who do you want to audition for? And I said, I want to audition for Michael Drury, because Michael Drury was, at the time, there was two scripts. One was called Rogerson, and the other one was called Drury. And so they were the two leads. Now, obviously, one was called Nettie Smith and the other one was called Drury. They were the two, but as they did more research and as they wrote the scripts and got, you know, polished the drafts of the scripts, what emerged was this incredible character of Rogerson. Yeah. And what emerged was what a, you know, psychopath he was. Yeah. And he became the lead, really. He became all about Rogerson. So, you know, I went in there to audition for Mick Drury, and I'd seen a couple of videos of him. I hadn't met him, but I'd seen some videos of him. And again, you know, he had very particular eyebrows, and I plucked my eyebrows exactly like his and made them exactly like him, and fixed my hair like he had a particular hairstyle, and also he spoke a very particular way, and I'll never forget that. It was a very unique way, the way he spoke. So I did as much research as I could on him through video, and I went into the audition and I nailed it, and I thought I just walked out of there knowing that I had it.
Yeah.
But initially Michael Jenkins, the director, he didn't believe I could do it. Like, he said, really? He said, you know, Michael Drury, he wasn't that keen. And I went in and I convinced him. And after that audition, I got the role. So that was fantastic. And then we started doing a lot of research. There was a lot of, because there was still things happening in the courts, obviously it was banned. We didn't know that at the time, but we did all get, a lot of us got, Richard and myself both got death threats and all kinds of things when we were shooting it. Like there were people who didn't want that story told, and who wanted to make sure, like I had one guy come up to me in a bar and say to me, do you know how easy it would be for me? Well, first he said, I hear you're playing Mick Drury. And I said, that's right. How do you know that? And he said, oh, I've got my people. I've got my sources. And I said, okay. And he said, do you know there'd be a lot of people very disappointed if you didn't. First he said, do you know Mick Drury's a crook? And I said, no, I don't know that. He was investigated for 10 years by Internal Affairs. Nobody ever found anything. I've done a lot of research. There's nothing to suggest that he was crooked. He said, well, I'm telling you, I know for sure that he was a crook. And I said, well, why should I take your word for it? He goes, it's not just my word. He said, there's a lot of people who'd be very disappointed if you don't portray him as such. And I said, well, look, mate, with all due respect, I don't know you from a bar of soap. And, all the research I've done and Internal Affairs surely would have turned up something in 10 years. And he said, look, he said to me, you know how easy it would be for me to follow you into the bathroom and put a bullet in the back of your head? And I said, and I'd had a few drinks, so I turned around and just laughed at him and said, oh, yeah, do your best, mate. And I walked away. But I did some research and found out that he was the real deal. He was a guy who was, So I didn't sleep too well after that. I had quite a bit of anxiety for, I remember for the whole period of filming that I would turn on my car, and I had an old Mercedes at the time, an old 280 SE, beautiful old Merc, Yeah. But every time I got in, I'd turn the ignition like this. Yeah. I was convinced that I was just paranoid that it was, I was going to get blown up. And, I had people were threatening us, and, we were getting phone calls and all kinds of things. So it wasn't pleasant to shoot, but we knew we were onto something special, all of us, we knew that it was going to be something special. Yeah.
Was Roger, was he consulting to the show at the time?
Oh, no, God, no. He was, no, not at all. Like Roger was dead against it.
Okay.
He was trying to get it stopped. Yeah, he had his people. Like that guy that threatened me was one of Rogerson's mates. So,
wow.
They were all trying to get us shut down.
Amazing.
And in fact, they didn't stop us filming it, but they did stop the release for many years. There was court cases and things. So there was a lot of bootleg copies of the VHSs being sold in pubs for $400.
Yeah, it was huge.
It made more money in the black market than it did in the real market.
And what a fall from grace that Roger Rogerson. I mean, he was such a
incredible, a psychopath,
cop,
absolute psychopath.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You also wrote, produced, and starred in Welfare in 2019. Can you tell us how the idea for the series came about and what it was like working behind the scenes as well as starring in it? Was crowdfunded?
Yeah, look, initially I was approached by this young girl who was just out of drama school, and she had an idea, and it was a very rough idea. And she had a couple of scenes that she'd filmed, and she really didn't know what to do with it. So she came to me and asked if I was interested in playing one of the roles. And I said, well, what are you going to do with it? And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, okay, well, I could see that there was a kernel of something that was interesting there. And I really liked the idea of doing an Australian version of The Office or something to that, along those lines. And so she had this basic idea. And I said, look, if I'll come on board as a producer, but I want to have creative input, and I want to be able to, I want to co-write it and produce it. And and I'll play the lead role. You know, she wanted me to play the lead role anyway, but I wanted to basically have the control to do what, you know, I thought where it needed to go. So we worked together and developed the characters, and I came up with a whole bunch of different characters and made it super multicultural and you know, just a bunch of misfits who are working in this office who can't really get anything done, you know. So it came about through a lot of improvisation. I, you know, improvised a lot of it. On the day when most of the stuff that you see me deliver is improvised.
Oh, really?
Or around, yeah, a lot of it was improvised. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I just felt that that style of shooting, you know, the mockumentary kind of format needs to be really alive, and the way to do that is through improvisation, you know. So yeah, so we worked together and you know, we put together a pitch document, and we said we're going to need some money. And so I got Shane Jacobson on board, and we put him in the trailer. We cut this little trailer, and from that trailer, I said we're going to do a crowdfunding campaign. So we, you know, to try and get the money to shoot a little web series. And so we put it out there, and yeah, we hit our target. We were raising $8,000 to shoot for a weekend. And I think we were only going to shoot a couple of episodes. And then we got approached by a private investor who said, I love this idea. I think it's fantastic. You know, you should do more than 2 episodes, do 8 episodes. And he gave us a decent chunk. I think it was, you know, about 40 grand or something, you know, which was good enough to shoot that series. And from that, we shot the 8 episodes, and yeah, I pulled together the crew and everyone, and we cast it, and we shot it at my local neighborhood hub. Wow. So yeah, we took over the hub for a couple of weekends and filmed it there. It was hilarious, actually. There's people walking into the community hub looking for maternal health care and going, we go, cut, you're in the middle of a scene, lady. Oh, sorry, I just want to come in and weigh my baby. Yeah, it was very funny. So
I watched it yesterday, the whole lot, and I thought it was one of the funniest things I'd seen in a long time. And I loved how it was taking the mickey out of Centrelink and how ridiculous they are in some sense.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a debt that you owe to Centrelink, but you're not in the system, but we're going to put you in the. I mean, there was so many funny one-liners.
Crazy. Yeah, the best one. Yeah, when Akina Delachuku says, you know, I've put you, you've got 2 identities, so I'll put you as one person. And he goes, oh, good. So I've paid the debt. No, you still owe it, but only you owe it now.
And you were duplicated
instead of having 2 debts. Yeah, duplicated. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, there's some very funny stuff in it. Very funny stuff. I mean, I'm really surprised it didn't get picked up, to be honest. You know. But yeah, it didn't get picked up. I think SBS were looking at it for a while, and they passed on it for some reason. So I don't know.
I have to say, and it's not just because you're here now, but I have to say it was just as good as the UK office. I thought it was very.
Oh, great! That's big, high praise. Thank you.
Yeah. Now getting on to Neighbours in 2007. Now they decided the ratings were low, and they wanted to sort of focus on bringing a family orientation back to the show. So they brought your character and family in. Steve Parker for 2 years, from 2007 until 2009. So how did you get the role for that? Did you have to audition for Neighbours?
No, I didn't. Again, they offered it to me. They told me that, you know, I wasn't really interested, but I just moved down from Sydney with a pregnant wife and no income, and I just signed a long-term lease. So, you know, things were looking pretty grim. So when they said, you know, would you like to do a couple of years on Neighbours? I said, yeah, absolutely. That would be great. So I found it a really difficult thing to do, Neighbours. It was the way they shoot so quickly. There's not a lot of time. And, you know, you're working on 3 or 4 episodes sometimes in one day, you know, so you really got to be well organized. And I've never been well organized, you know. It's a particular skill to to be successful on a show like Neighbours, you really have to have a filing cabinet brain, and I don't have a filing cabinet brain. I've got a pinball machine brain. So, but I learned how to do it, and it was a good bunch of people. I enjoyed working with most of them. A lot of fun, and it paid well, and it paid the bills, and it gave me financial security and a couple of years solid work while I raised my family. So I'm very grateful for my time on Neighbours. I don't know if it achieved the results that they were trying to get with the ratings. I think when the ratings went up, they were going up for a while, and then they spiked, they fell flat again. So I don't think we saved the show like they were intending, but I think that was, I don't know, I think maybe the writing had something to do with that.
Were you given a character breakdown of Steve before accepting the role, and what did you think of the character?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was preparing to become a father myself, so it was in my wheelhouse, sort of thing. The fact, I was given a breakdown of who the character was, and the fact that he was a nice guy, neighborhood sort of family man who was a vet. And I like the idea of, it's always good when your character has something to do. Yeah. And so as a vet, you've got stuff to do. And, if you notice any scenes I had with animals, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So, I was just making it up as I was going along, like with stethoscopes and, thermometers and little, occasionally ripping off some rubber gloves. But I had enough business, and I've played doctors before. So, I kind of thought, well, how hard can it be? So, I enjoyed playing that character, and the fact that he was a vet and often, helped people. I knew that being a vet, you would be the connection with animals is either one of joy or despair. The opera, you're either saving an animal or you have to deliver the bad news, and either way, it provides good, dramatic possibility.
Yeah. Now, I want to be courtesy of your time because we are running out, so we might skip a few with Neighbours. But just on Neighbours, how come you left Neighbours? Did you just run out of storylines, or?
Well, no. I mean, the reality is I probably would have stayed on for another year. We initially, I think we were looking at that. But what happened was the girl, Eloise Mignon, who played Didge, my daughter, she wanted to finish her studies. She was a really super smart academic girl who loved studies and had a curious intellect and really super smart and lovely girl. I really enjoyed working with Eloise. And she's a beautiful person. Now she has a family of her own. But
you guys were great on TV together. You really had that chemistry as a father-daughter.
Yeah, well, I felt a real warmth with her. She was lovely, and we really got along well. I guess it being European too, there's a sort of simpatico there. But she wanted to continue her studies, and I thought, well, good on her. She wanted to study. I think she wanted to study law or something. So. The show thought that they couldn't sustain the Parker family without Didge, because really they brought in Didge, they brought in our family to be, facilitate Didge coming into the neighborhood, because it was always teen romances and things like that. That was the main storylines that they were sort of going for. So, without the teenager, who wants to see a couple of middle-aged people faffing around a kitchen?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do, but, apparently Neighbours audience doesn't.
Not now, anyway.
No.
We might move over to Wentworth, Ken.
Wentworth, yes. You were one of 12 prisoners actors to appear in Wentworth. You played corrupt cop Don Kaplan between 2016 and 2017. How did you get the part, and was it strange being in the reimagining of Prisoner?
Yeah, look, what was strange was coming to do Neighbours and walking into that studio at Nunawading, and I thought, I've been here before. I've been here before, and I couldn't work out where, because it was, you know, like years, you know, had passed, 3 decades had passed since I'd done it. And then I was told that's where they filmed Prisoner. So the green room that the green room we had, and then it all came back to me. The green room we had in Neighbours was the same green room we used in Prisoner. And I'll never forget walking onto Prisoner into the studio for my first day of filming, and all the tough old birds were in there. They were all in there in the green room playing cards and reading their scripts and smoking durries, and, you know, tough. They were tough women, you know, and they really had that vibe of a female prisoner. And I walked in, this 17-year-old kid, and they just all looked me up and down like, oh, here's a bit of fresh meat. It was kind of daunting, you know, to see Val Lehman and all of them just eyeballing me, you know, and it was kind of daunting. I was this new kid, and, you know, it was really like being the new kid at school. And but there was, you know, these tough women who were ready to eat you alive. So yeah, so my memory of coming into Wentworth, I mean, it was strange, really, because I remember when they first started talking about the series, I thought, oh, well, this sounds a lot like Prisoner. And they said, well, yeah, it's a reimagining, I guess, of Prisoner. So I told them, I said, I was in the original Prisoner. And they said, oh, no, we didn't know that. So, but again, you know, they offered me the role of Don Kaplan. And they didn't tell me much about it. They just said, look, you know, they wanted to keep their powder dry. And so they didn't tell me about the twist at the end. They just said, this guy's got something to hide. We don't want to tell you, unless you want to know. And I said, no, don't tell me, because there's nothing worse than knowing the outcome and then having to hide it. You know, I would rather not know the outcome, because we don't know where things are going to go. We don't always have an end goal. You know, sometimes opportunities arise in the moment, and you think, I'm going to take this opportunity and push it this way, you know. And so, yeah, when they gave me the role of Kaplan, I thought it was nice, because, you know, he was a very duplicitous character, and, you know, obviously. It was a quality show, good people working on it. The writing was good. Yeah. I didn't enjoy working in the studio. I found the studio very claustrophobic. You know, I don't know why. Maybe it was just the sets that I was working in, but I found
it was a purpose-built prison, wasn't it?
Yeah, Wentworth. It was the prison facility, but they filmed it at a disused sort of factory warehouse place out in Williamstown, and they were very clever. They had the production office and the studio all under the one roof. So you know, if anything needed to be reshot or scripts needed to be jiggled or whatever, then it was all under the same roof. So very efficient, and, you know, a great bunch of people, really, you know, great professionals, and good writing, good acting, good direction. We couldn't fault the production, really. You know, I didn't feel comfortable in the studio there for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it was a bit claustrophobic or something. I remember feeling a bit anxious in that space. You know, maybe it was the character. I don't know. Maybe it was the character I was playing. Too much sugar in those bloody muffins.
Muffins. That's right. Well, that's covered my next question. So I'll move on to Ken's.
Oh, it's revealed in Series 6 that Don had been arrested in Amsterdam and all his cases were tainted, meaning that Liz would not be charged with perjury, but she was still being investigated for it, and Sonia would have walked from prison. What was it like working with legendary actress Sigrid Thornton and Celia Ireland, and what was it like being part of that storyline and playing Don?
Well, that's the first I've heard of that storyline. I had no idea what happened to Don until you just told me. So thank you for that. Yeah, I had no clue I was arrested.
Oh, you know?
Then. No. So there you go. I mean, I didn't watch the series, you know, so I don't watch a lot of my work. So these days, I do it and then I walk away. I loved working with Sigrid and Celia. They're both beautiful actors and very fine actors. You know, both of them have got a huge body of work behind them and are just consummate professionals. So yeah, it was great. Siggy and I go back a long time. I've known Siggy for years, so it's always a pleasure to work with her. I really enjoyed it. And playing Don was again, it was a lot of fun. He was sort of an archetype sort of bad guy, really. This sort of smooth dude, and very charming and sensitive, and sort of with this sort of dark sort of secret. Looking back, I probably would have played a few things a bit differently, but there's always three performances. The performance you're going to give, the performance you give, and the performance you should have given. So there's hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah. Now let's get to one of the greatest shows on television before we wrap up. So you were in 10 episodes of Prisoner. You played Nancy McCormack's son, Peter. How did you get that role for Prisoner, if you can remember back that far?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was only 17 at the time, and I auditioned for it, and I can't remember whether I auditioned at Crawford's or, because there was only about 2 places where you auditioned, and one of them was Crawford's, and the other one was Grundy's, and that was a Grundy's show. So I auditioned for that one at Grundy's. That would have been with Jan Russ, the great Jan Russ. I auditioned before it with Jan Russ, and I got the role. I was very green. I didn't know what I was doing. I was sort of making it up as I was going along, really. But I loved the storyline. I loved the fact that this boy had sort of, tried to protect his mother and accidentally killed his father, and just, what that must have meant for him, to grieve the loss of his father and to, carry the guilt of that, and yet, becoming this father in a way, stepping into those shoes. So it was a good character trajectory. It was a nice character arc for me as an actor, and I just thought, yeah, this would be good to play. I had a lot of fun with that as well. Julia Blake was such a beautiful actor. She's such a good actress. Really, again, the consummate professional. And ironically, she played my mum twice. So she's played my mum in Prisoner, but she also played my mum in The Magistrate, which was the series with Franco Nero. She played my mother in that, and I go, she's the epitome of the English rose, and I'm this sort of Mediterranean dude. And so you think, well, how could she play my mum twice? That's bizarre. So, but she has, and yeah, we always got along so well. She was lovely, generous actress, and I really enjoyed working on Prisoner. It was daunting in the studio, because when all the ladies were together, there was this atmosphere of, it was really like there was this atmosphere, where they were a tight knit bunch, and as an outsider, and I guess as a 17-year-old, it was very intimidating, Yeah. But we shot very quickly in those days, I had a good, nice chunk of dramatic storyline to work with. So it was a meaty little storyline. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Ken knows what it's like. He served his life sentence on Prisoner, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked a big percentage of those episodes. So
did you?
Yeah. I was the camera crew.
Oh, you're in the camera crew. Okay. Yeah, right. So the multicam, the big old cameras they used to wheel around the studio with the multicam and wrangle those cables. It was such a different world back then. The studio stuff was always, super fast. They shoot so quickly. Mm.
Yeah. When you got the role of Peter, did you know that was the storyline that was going to play out?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I knew the storyline. Like they I was pretty excited when I got it, because I thought, oh wow, I can do something good with this. It wasn't, normally and normally when you play a guestie in something like that, it's quite difficult, because the storyline is generally there to serve the resident characters.
Yeah.
As it was in this too. It was really Julia Blake's storyline. But in this case, there was a bit more substance and depth to my storyline was really a peripheral one, to serve Julia's story. But there was still enough there for me to really work with and create something, which I thought was, it was interesting to work with as an actor. There was a lot more depth than is normally provided for guest roles.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did any of the old timers take you under the wing at the time?
Look, no, not really. Julia did. Julia was lovely. She was very gentle and kind to me, and she was lovely. And the director was a lovely bloke too. He was a guy called Kendall Flanagan. And Kendall Flanagan used to walk around with a styrofoam cup with his cappuccino. And he'd be drinking his cappuccino through the day. And it was always had a nice frothy head on it, if you know what I mean. But he was a good director, Kendall. He really knew what he wanted and could communicate it very clearly. So he's no longer with us, unfortunately. But yeah, Kendall Flanagan. Yeah, hats off to you, mate.
Can you Kendall very well?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I understand what you're talking about with the cappuccino.
Well, yeah, I mean, and TV world was very different back then. And I kind of miss it. And there was something more bohemian about it. There was more relaxed. Artists were, they drank, they smoked, whatever, and but they got the job done, and there was a lot of more focus on the creative aspects as opposed to the technical, I think. And maybe that's just my perception, but that's how I feel about it. And these days, actors are a lot more focused and regimented. It's a lot more of a, it's a job. It's not. And in my day, it was an art. An art. It was a creative pursuit, and it still is. But there's something become a bit more corporate about it, or something now. There's the expectation of it's too. In those days, it was like, let's have a play and see where this goes. And now it's about outcome. We need to get there. And so you need to deliver a performance that gets us there, and it's kind of, it's a different approach. Yeah. I think it stifles creativity when it's too outcome driven. I think you need that room. And that's why in welfare, and whenever I can, I choose to improvise, because it gives you more creative freedom and the outcome can be more interesting,
Do you think that's affected the quality of TV now? Because it's so. I
think what's affected the quality of the TV these days is the emphasis on ratings. It's all, it's so market driven now. Like, they do all kinds of metrics to try and measure how success is going to be captured. Yet you can't capture magic by metrics, and what makes a great film, or what makes a great series, or what makes a great TV show, it's magical. There's great writing, there's great direction, there's great acting, there's great lighting, there's great camera operate, there's the whole team. It's not just one. And if there's any of those elements missing from the puzzle, it's not going to be great. It might be good, but it's not going to be great. It's not going to be magical, and for all of those things to come into play, it's got zero to do with metrics. It's got nothing to do with market research, got nothing to do with audience testing or whatever. It's to do with, that magical organic thing that happens when same process as cooking a beautiful meal. If you've got one little thing missing, it's not going to be the same, So, and for all of those elements to be made with love and not, on a clock with, money, time is money, which unfortunately a lot of commercial television is driven that way these days.
Yeah. Speaking of time, we've got about 10 minutes left, so maybe we should get on to the fan questions, Ken.
Yes, I've got one from Jan Robinson from the Scottish Highlands. You appeared in 2 episodes of The Alice. What was it like working with Eric Thompson? I live in Inverness, where he was born in Scotland.
Wow. Okay. Hi, Jan. Eric Thompson is a beautiful human being. He's a really nice guy, really friendly, down to earth, and a funny, very funny guy. We had a lot of fun together working on that, particularly in that Indian steam tent scene that we did together. Was pretty hilarious. I loved working on The Alice. I thought it was a great show, really original. And of course, that was my first time out in Alice Springs. So, you know, just from a tourism perspective, it was eye-opening to see the red ochre color of the earth, and with the, you know, that brilliant indigo sky. It's so contrasty and it's so beautiful. And anything you shoot there, the light is just perfect. So Dee Smart played my wife on that. Dee Smart's a wonderful actress and lovely lady. So again, I mean, I played a truckie who was sort of a truckie who was having marital problems. So that was fun. Yeah, I had I enjoyed that immensely. It was nice to shoot out in Alice Springs, and Eric Thompson is every bit as likable off screen as he is on.
Fantastic. And Jan, who is actually our producer behind the scenes, so we had to get her question in first.
Okay.
She also says she loved Sea Patrol.
Oh, Sea Patrol. Yeah, okay. I enjoyed Sea Patrol too. Again, it was one of those gigs where you get to go somewhere exotic and beautiful. That was shot up in Mission Beach in far north Queensland, and that was fantastic. I was up there and for about a week and had a beautiful apartment right poolside near the beach. So yeah, so when you get those gigs, you sort of thank your lucky stars. It's not always like that, of course, but again, you know, working with Tammy McIntosh and people that I really loved. Hal and Di McElroy produced that show, and I've known Hal and Di since my police rescue days, because they were working at Southern Star at the same time with their own projects. I think Water Rats was their first big one, which I always get people going, "Oh, you were great in Water Rats." I was like, I've never been in Water Rats. So, but yeah, look, I really enjoyed Sea Patrol, and the character was fun to play. You know, it's always fun to play assholes because you don't have to, you know, you don't have any kind of you know, ramifications. You just, you know, go rampant with impunity and not worrying about going to jail or anything like that, you
know. Now, the next question we have covered, but there's also a comment from Max said, "Hey, Steve, I just wanted to say that this storyline in Prisoner, in my opinion, is one of the best throughout the whole show. It was so realistic, and the way you portrayed Peter was absolutely brilliant. And the twist near the end where Peter started doing the same to his wife, Danielle, was both shocking and brilliant at the same time. And again, very true to life."
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that, you know, way back then to tackle something like that, I think was probably ahead of its time. You know, domestic violence really is a big issue these days. You know, it's an epidemic in Australia. And so to portray it on screen is always a tricky choice, and needs to be handled well. And, you know, I think that, you know, again, it was a testament to Kendall's work was he understood that, and he kind of tried to find the complexities about that, and rather than just make it a sort of boring kind of black and white thing, he kind of opened up that, you know, the effect it has on the family and how it sort of spills into everyone's life, you know, not just the perpetrator and the victim, but the, you know, the fallout from that as a family has an effect on the family. So, Yeah, I think it was a great storyline too. I agree, and it was a lot of. Again, I think I explained before. For me as an actor, I had plenty to work with, so it was very satisfying.
Just going off topic for a minute, I watched a show last night called The Maid, which is on Netflix, which is actually all about domestic violence based on a true story in America. It's really portraying it really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a sensitive topic. You know, it needs to be handled with care and a lot of good research and tact. Yeah,
definitely.
Lindsay James makes this comment: loved him in Blue Murder, especially his line, "Doing deals interstate really pumps me up." Me and my friends quote it all the time.
That's very funny. Yeah, I get people from all over the world, come up to me and quote Blue Murder lines to me. And sometimes I won't know what they're doing. And I'll go, what the hell is this person talking about? They'll come up to me and go, that could be could be a bit of pie from my sauce, a bit of sauce from my pie, stuck the notes together. Like just crazy sort of little lines from Blue Murder. I remember, the actor Lockie Hume, the first time I met him was at the Noosa Film Festival. And he came up to me at the after party and just started quoting my lines back to me. And he got me in the corner and he just wouldn't let me go. And he's going, and doing all the lines from Blue Murder. And I'm going, what is this guy talking about? And he just went off on a tangent about Blue Murder. So it's weird how that show has really some dyed-in-the-wool fans from, particularly in England. Apparently there's groups of expatriates who get together Friday nights and have pizza nights where you're only allowed to speak in Blue Murder dialogue. They watch Blue Murder, they have pizza, and you're only allowed to speak in dialogue from Blue Murder. And this is like this cult sort of thing, So yeah, it's crazy. It's amazing how, drama affects people and how people take it into their hearts and run with it. So look, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So it's good to be involved in things. I think, I'm fortunate to be involved in a few things that have made a lasting impact on people. So
yeah, fantastic. Peter Clark also said, "Hi Steve, I love watching police rescue." We've also discussed what he's going to ask, but he also said, did you have to spend time with the New South Wales police rescue teams when you were shooting it?
Yeah, we did. We had a couple of representatives who came out and were consultants for the first series, just to make sure we were doing everything right. And, interestingly, some of the things that we should have done, we didn't do because they didn't work dramatically or for camera. For instance, all the abseiling stuff we did, they would never do that stuff without hard hats. So they would wear hard hats, but the hard hat, we tried them, and the hard hats looked so dicky, and they made us look like, Bob the Builder or something. So, they said, piss off the hard hats, right? We can't have those. They just look ridiculous. How can these people look cool wearing hard hats? So, in all the abseiling stuff, you'll see that we're never wearing helmets, and we should have. The police rescue guys were like, we would never do that without a helmet. And in fact, if you watch the first series, there's probably a few scenes where we are wearing the helmets, and then after a while, we made. I think that there was reasons like for lighting, but also they looked ridiculous. So the helmets went by the wayside. Yeah, there was a few things that a few technical things that the cops were. I remember they were like, no, you wouldn't do this. We were like, yeah, but this is movies. We're making movies. So we took a bit of artistic license with a few things.
Oh, fantastic.
David Burton also says that he liked your role in Blue Murder as well.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, Blue Murder was one of. Well, it's interesting. It is. It's one of those ones that people, Quentin Tarantino apparently said that it was his favourite Australian television ever.
Oh, really?
I think he actually said it was one of the best pieces of television he'd ever seen. So something,
wow.
That was from Tarantino. And because he's a big John Jarratt fan.
Oh, is he?
Okay. Yeah, he put him in that movie Django because he loved him in Blue Murder. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I got to work with so many legends of the screen, Bill Hunter and John Jarratt, and people like that. I mean, it was amazing. And it still holds up today when you watch it. I'll never forget, about 10 years after we made it, I bumped into Richard Roxburgh at a bar in King's Cross, and he'd had a few to drink, and so had I. And he leaned over and he gives me a hug and he goes, mate, that's the best thing we're ever going to do. He said, we were talking about Blue Murder, and he said, he goes, we'll never make anything better than that. And I was sort of like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I have to retire already, And
how good is Richard in Rake? Rake is just brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, Richard's fantastic. I worked with him recently on The Fires. I had a small role in The Fires, and it was good to reconnect with him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Lee Van Frizz, he said, this isn't a comment to be read out, just a late night drunken statement, but I'm sure we can read it out. Is that okay, Ken? What a strong, hard-hitting storyline you were involved in Prisoner. I always remember that iconic scene when Reb Keane was in a cafe restaurant with Dr. Wiseman, who was played by Brian Williams, on her final release day from Wentworth, and the camera shot to the outside as you passed by on a dull and rainy day on your push bike heading home, the start of a new hard-hitting story. To me, it symbolized a crossover / separation of the old era of Prisoner and the beginning of the new era of characters. My throat went dry when you were exposed for your father's murder in the interview room, Nancy's only remedy to your character's violent nature, emotional stuff brilliantly acted by both of you.
I think that he should write more when he's drunk, because he's a very good writer. He's a great writer, and I agree. It's interesting that he noted that sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
Which is, again, requires, he's got obviously a high, fine-tuned sense of discernment, and can articulate it very well when he's drunk. So write more when you're drunk, mate.
Pete Town says, I hope I'm not too late. Please tell Steve that I loved him as Banquo in the Australian film version of Macbeth. Can you ask him what it was like to film Shakespeare, and has he played any other Shakespearean roles?
Look, for a boy from Brunswick, Shakespeare was well out of my wheelhouse. And I was really terrified at the prospect of having to try and play Shakespeare on film or anywhere for that matter. I'd read a bit of Shakespeare and I really enjoy reading it. He's a beautiful writer and incredibly timeless, like the themes Shakespeare deals with are relevant today. So he was a bit of a prophet, wasn't he, old Will? Yeah, so again, it was the director of Romper Stomper. So when he came and asked me, I think Sam Worthington was the first person attached to it, and Sam and I were hanging out quite a bit at the time, and he asked, he said you should get in on this. And Jeffrey Wright was the director of Romper Stomper, and obviously he was going to direct this. And so when I heard about it, I thought, oh well, I'd love to be involved in this, and sort of threw my hat in the ring. I had a meeting with Jeffrey Wright. And we talked about it, and I really didn't know much about Shakespeare. I didn't know much. I'd read Macbeth before the meeting, obviously, and told him, how I'd love to be involved. I didn't care who I played, as long as I could be involved. I'd be grateful. And so I think there was, initially they were talking to me about the role of Macbeth, which Lockie Hume ended up playing. Yeah, so there was a couple of roles that they wanted me to audition for, and I said, "Oh, I'd love to have a go at Banquo," and so he let me audition for Banquo and gave me the role, and so yeah, it was fantastic, a reimagining of Macbeth, and the fact that there's no dialogue in the first 10 minutes of the movie, pretty much, is pretty amazing. Visually, it was very elaborate and beautiful, and the action stuff was great fun. I wish there was more Shakespeare in it, to be honest. And yeah, I thought Sam did a good job, and Jeffrey did a good job. It didn't do as well as everyone would have hoped, but to work on it was a great experience.
Yeah. Stephen James said, love Steve in Police Rescue, which was a lot of other comments with it. It's similar as well about Police Rescue. It's just a comment there.
And Steve Bellamy also says, hi, Steve, what are your memories of The Heartbreak Kid? The movie was from 1993. Are you also aware it was based on a true story?
Yeah, I knew it was based on a play that was kicking around because I hadn't seen the play, but I'd seen posters around for the play. So when they did the movie, I just finished doing, I think, Blue Murder, or no, maybe it was just after Police Rescue. But again, that was Michael Jenkins who directed it. Yeah, I auditioned for the. Did I audition or was I offered it, Dimitri? I think I might have auditioned for it, actually. I really enjoyed working on that. Again, he was playing a real smarmy sort of prick of a guy. But he was a very meticulous. He was a Greek guy who, a Greek lawyer who thought he knew it all and could control his life to the nth degree. And I mean, the fact that he was Greek is of no consequence, but I've met a lot of guys like him who think they can control every aspect of their life, and they're very methodical and very ordered and very proper and they're very dogmatic and my way or the highway kind of thing. So that character was fun because I got to do something. That was my first time I really tried to do something different as far as a character piece goes. I slicked the hair right back and I grew a mustache and glasses, and it was the first time I tried a sort of characterization, I guess, and it worked well. I mean, I thought it worked well for him. I kind of got a sense of what the soul of the guy was like. I think he was a fairly scared kind of, very closed-minded guy, very successful in his little chosen field, but knew nothing of life experience outside of that. And so when he meets this woman who has dreams of a bigger future, it throws his world into turmoil. He doesn't understand how she could not want what he wants, so it was quite interesting from that perspective. The cultural phenomenons of the cultural traditions of that sort of traditional Greek upbringing, I think came into play there, which was quite interesting. Yeah,
definitely.
I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah. Maria Grande, who actually runs the Partners in Crime group that do the prisoner fan meet and greets, the event, said she loves Steve's character in Wentworth. Thought you're amazing as Don.
Thank you.
Yeah. 3
cupcakes to you.
Now, can we get the web address again just before we wrap up for the Peninsula Film Festival? It was...
Sure. Yeah, it's just peninsulafilmfestival.com.au.
And we'll throw a link up to that. And thank you so much for your time. I know we've gone over a few minutes, but it's an absolute honour to learn about your life and career and all the amazing TV shows and movies that you have been in.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show, and thanks to all the fans out there who love Wentworth and Prisoner. And keep your eyes out. Next year, we've got a good movie with Russell Crowe coming out called Poker Face. So, yeah, hot off the press. I'm going up to finish filming start of February. So,
wow, can you tell us
that'll
what
come out
Poker
probably? Yeah, I'd say early next. Poker Face. It's hard to pitch in one sentence, but it's about a billionaire who has a very intriguing night of poker with his best mates, and all goes a bit haywire. Oh, wow. So I won't give away too much. There's that one, and I've also got a true crime one that's based on a best-selling book, which I'm about to start producing as well. So there's going to be a few things in the pipeline. Watch this space.
Cheers. Thanks for working on stuff. Make sure you let us know.
I will. Thank you.
That was episode 32 of Talking Prisoner. Thank you for watching. If you could please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Talking Prisoner, and share the videos where you can. Please also like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page. And this episode of Talking Prisoner will also be available across all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts, and also on the talkingprisoner.com website. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Matt.